Tonight's episode includes a Manta Sleep affiliate link, which helps support the show at no extra cost to you. If you've ever tried sleeping with a regular sleep mask and found that light still gets in around the edges, or the mask presses against your eyes and just feels uncomfortable, Manta Sleep takes a different approach. Their masks are designed to give you a true blackout experience while keeping pressure off your eyes, so you can actually relax and forget you're wearing one. They also have several different versions depending on how you sleep, and one of the coolest is their Bluetooth audio sleep mask. It combines the blackout mask with built-in audio so you can listen to music, white noise, or even your favorite sleep stories without having earbuds in your ears all night. And for a podcast like this, that combination just makes sense. Block out the light, put on a story, and let everything else disappear for a while. If you're looking to upgrade your nighttime routine, check out Manta Sleep and find the mask that works best for you. You can find a direct link to them in the description of each episode. They also ship worldwide. Thanks for supporting the show. Now, let's get started. Welcome to Deep Sleep Stories, and let yourself arrive softly with nothing to solve and nowhere else to be. Tonight's story carries you to a small lighthouse above the Amalfi Coast after a gentle rain where wet stone steps, silver leaves, quiet boats, and a warm turning light guide the evening into peace. Feel the surface beneath you holding your body. Let your shoulders loosen as though a cloak you have worn all day can finally slide away. Let the jaw soften, let the hands rest, let the feet grow heavy and warm. The world outside may continue in its own way, but here in this moment there is permission to slow down. Imagine the air after rain, cool and clean, touched with lemon leaves and sea salt. Imagine pale houses climbing the hillside, their shutters half closed, their walls still darkened by water. The sky is the color of pearl, not quite day and not quite night. And every stone in the lane reflects a little of the fading light. Breathe in as though the tide is coming gently toward shore. Breathe out as though the tide is carrying away the small worries of the day. Thoughts may pass, but they do not need to be followed. They can drift like gulls in a far sky, seen for a moment, then released. And now the story begins to move away from you. Light as a lantern set upon calm water. It belongs to a traveler walking through Amalfi after rain, drawn upward by the quiet glow of a lighthouse watching over the sea. The traveler had arrived in the village late in the afternoon, just as the rain was beginning to fade. It did not stop all at once. It loosened slowly, thinning into silver threads, until the clouds seemed to breathe out and lift from the mountains. Water ran between the harbor stones in narrow shining streams. Fishing boats rocked in their berths with wet ropes and lowered sails, nodding as if they were already asleep. Amalfi rested between cliff and water like a dream held in a cupped hand. Houses rose in soft layers up the slope, cream and rose and pale gold, their shutters green against the damp evening. Above them, terraces of lemon trees leaned over old walls. The rain had washed every leaf bright, and the lemons glowed in the dimness like small moons caught among branches.
The traveler carried very little, a wool coat, a small satchel, and a book that had not been opened all day. There had been plans in the morning, perhaps, places marked and hours considered, but the rain had softened the shape of everything. By evening, there was no need for a plan. There was only the scent of wet stone, the quiet ringing of water from balconies, and far above the harbor, the pale lantern room of a lighthouse. It stood on a shoulder of rock beyond the last houses, not high and severe, but graceful, weathered, and steady. Its white walls had been touched by years of salt and sun. Around it, wild grasses and rosemary clung to the slope, bending under beads of rain. When the clouds shifted, the glass at the top caught a thread of gold, and the traveler felt drawn toward it with the simple certainty that one follows a warm light at the end of a long day. The path began behind the church, where wet steps climbed into a narrow lane. No hurry was possible there. The stairs were uneven, old, and patient, passing beneath iron balconies and small shrines set into walls. From a kitchen somewhere came the smell of bread warming after rain. From another open window came a lullaby sung very softly, perhaps to a child, perhaps only to the evening itself. The traveler climbed slowly. At each turn, the village opened in some small new way. A blue door with a brass handle, a clay pot spilling basil, a sleeping cat beneath a stone bench, a narrow passage where the rain had left a mirror along the ground. Nothing asked to be understood. Everything simply rested in its place, damp and shining and complete. Above the roofs, the clouds moved apart. The sea, which had been gray and close, began to show long bands of silver. Beyond the harbor wall, little waves lifted and folded, touching the rocks with a sound like slow breathing. The boats below were tied for the weather and now moved only gently, their ropes creaking now and then as though murmuring in dreams. Halfway up the hill, the traveler came upon a terrace with a low wall overlooking the coast. An old man was there, sweeping rainwater away from the stones with a broom made of twigs. His hair was white and fine, and his movements had the unhurried rhythm of someone who had swept the same terrace through many seasons. He looked up and smiled, not in surprise, but as though company after rain was a natural thing. He said the path to the lighthouse was clear, though the rosemary would scent the traveler's coat, and the stones near the top might be slick. His voice was quiet and warm. It seemed to belong to the village as much as the bells, the gulls, and the water running downhill. The traveler thanked him and lingered a moment. The old man leaned on his broom and looked toward the tower. He said that after rain, the lighthouse always appeared closer. On dry days, it stood apart, a white mark on stone, but after rain, the wet air seemed to make a bridge between the village and the lantern. People who had lived there all their lives still looked for it when storms passed. It made them feel that the evening had been gathered safely. The traveler smiled and continued upward. The path wound past lemon groves where rainwater fell from leaf to leaf in tiny drops. Each drop seemed to take its time. Each small sound widened the quiet instead of breaking it. Rosemary brushed the traveler's coat, and its scent rose fresh and green, mingling with earth, salt, and the faint sweetness of wet blossoms. The village softened behind. Its voices became part of the distance. The climb was easy now, less a journey than a slow drifting upward. The path curved along the cliff, protected by a low stone wall, and beyond it the sea opened in the deepening dusk. The coast stretched away in shadowed folds. Here and there, a house lamp appeared on a slope, then another, until the hills seemed to be remembering stars before the sky had fully revealed them. Near the top, the traveler paused beneath an olive tree, its trunk twisted from the earth in silver ridges, ancient and calm, holding little pools of rain in the hollows of its bark. The leaves moved lightly in the breeze, green on one side and pale on the other, so the whole tree shimmered without ever leaving its rooted stillness. Beneath it, a snail made an unhurried way across a flat stone, carrying its small spiral home through the evening. When the traveler moved on, the lighthouse was near. A short path bordered by lavender and wild fennel led to a weathered gate left open. Beyond it, the tower rose from a small courtyard paved in stone. Rainwater lay in shallow places between the slabs, reflecting pieces of cloud in the dim lantern room above. A bench stood against the wall. A coil of old rope hung from a hook. Beside the door, a ceramic tile showed a painted ship with red sails, faded by years of sun. No one seemed to be there. The lighthouse door was closed, but not locked. It opened inward with a soft wooden sound, and the traveler stepped into the cool, round room at the base of the tower. The air smelled faintly of lime wash, iron, and old salt. A narrow stair wound upward along the wall. Tiny windows appeared as the stairs curved, each one framing a different fragment of the coast. A wet rooftop, a lemon branch, a slice of silver water, a cliff face darkened by rain. At the lantern room, the door stood ajar. The glass panes encircled the space, each beaded with water. In the center, the lamp was already awake. It did not blaze fiercely. It turned with a slow, graceful motion, sending its beam across the sea, across the harbor, across the wet terraces and sleeping roads. The light swept past the traveler's coat, passed over the glass, and went out into evening. Then darkness returned, but only briefly, for the light continued its round, always returning, always beginning again. The traveler stood very still. The lantern made no dramatic sound, only a low, steady murmur, a hum of mechanism and care. Outside, the last clouds opened in long seams. The western sky became diluted peach, then lavender, then a blue deep enough to hold the first stars. The sea answered in darker shades, but wherever the beam touched, the water brightened for a moment, then let the brightness go. It was easy to understand why people made stories about the lighthouse. Standing there above the village and below the sky, the traveler felt that the tower was not merely a building. It was a listening place. It listened to rainwater sliding from the roof. It listened to waves turning over stones at the base of the cliff. It listened to hidden rooms below, where suppers were being cleared, shutters latched, and children tucked beneath blankets. On a shelf beneath one window stood a little brass box. Its lid had been polished by many hands, though the rest of it was dark with age. Beside it was a blue ceramic bowl filled with folded slips of paper. A note in careful handwriting said that visitors might leave a worry in the box and take a quiet thought from the bowl. The traveler considered this. There were always worries, some large, some small, some so familiar they seemed almost like companions. But in the lantern room, while the light turned steadily and the damp air cooled against the glass, it felt possible to set one down. The traveler took a blank slip and wrote a few words. They did not need to explain everything. They simply named what had been heavy. The brass box opened with a gentle click. Inside were other folded slips, many others, resting together in the darkness. The traveler placed the worry among them and closed the lid. Nothing changed in any obvious way. The sea continued. The light continued. Yet the traveler's hands felt lighter. Then the traveler reached into the bowl and drew out a folded paper. The message inside was brief, written by an unknown hand. It said that even stone steps become smooth by receiving rain. The traveler read it slowly. The meaning did not need to be chased. It was enough to hold the words for a while and let them settle. A soft sound came from below then, musical as a tiny bell stirred by wind. The traveler looked down the stairwell and saw a cat with fur as dark as wet slate and eyes like green sea glass. It climbed with the dignity of a creature who owned every threshold. Around its neck was a little brass tag that chimed gently against the stair. The cat reached the lantern room and sat beside the traveler as though this had been arranged long ago. Together they watched the light pass over the sea. The cat blinked slowly, and the traveler felt no need to speak. The presence of another quiet being made the room warmer. Its tail curled around its paws. Its whiskers twitched whenever the lantern hummed past, as if it understood the turning of light better than any human could. After a while, the cat rose and walked to the door, pausing to look back. The traveler followed. Down the spiral stairs they went, past the little framed windows and the smell of salt, to the round room below. Outside, the rain had stopped completely. The air held that rare stillness that comes just after weather has moved on, when the world seems newly made and reluctant to disturb itself. Behind the lighthouse, a small sheltered path led to a garden hidden from the village. The cat was already there, stepping through grasses jeweled with rain. The traveler followed at a slow pace, trusting the path because the evening asked for trust. The garden was enclosed by low walls and full of plants that loved wind and salt: lavender, sage, thyme, fennel, and roses with petals loosened by rain. A stone cistern stood at the center, brimming with collected water. The surface was so still that it held the sky perfectly. Stars, only just appearing above, floated there upside down. The cat leapt onto the wall and began washing one paw. The traveler sat on a stone bench beside the cistern. From this side of the lighthouse, the village could not be seen. There was only the garden, the tower, the sky, and the faint sound of waves far below. It felt like a place set aside between waking and dreaming, where the day could finish dissolving. As twilight deepened, the garden changed. The lavender darkened. The roses became pale shapes. The wet leaves gave back the last light they had gathered. Somewhere among the stones, crickets began their delicate evening music. It was not loud. It was the kind of sound heard more with the body than the ears. A soft stitching of night into the edges of the world. The old man from the terrace appeared at the garden gate carrying a covered basket. The traveler was not startled. In such an evening, arrivals felt natural, as though everyone followed paths already known by the heart. The old man placed the basket on the bench and lifted the cloth. Inside were warm rolls, figs, a small piece of cheese wrapped in paper, and water drawn from a spring above the village. He said that those who visit the lighthouse after rain sometimes forget supper. His eyes shone with, quiet humor. Together they shared the food in the little garden while the lamp turned overhead. The rolls were soft and warm. The figs tasted of honey and dusk. The cheese held the salt of the coast. No one spoke much. Words were not necessary. After a while, the old man told a small story. When he was young, he had imagined the lighthouse beam reaching other coasts where other lights were waiting. In his mind, each lighthouse greeted the next, until the whole dark edge of the world was held in a chain of gentle signals. The traveler listened, watching the lamp turn. It seemed possible that somewhere beyond the horizon, another lantern answered, and beyond that, another. Not in urgency, but in patience. A quiet assurance moving over water. Here is the coast. Here is the way. Here is a place where someone is keeping watch. When the food was finished, the old man gathered the cloth and said the traveler could remain as long as desired. The tower was safe. The path down would be easy under the moon. He touched the cat gently between the ears, received a dignified blink in return, and left through the gate, his steps fading along the stones. The traveler stayed in the garden. Night unfolded fully now, not like a curtain falling, but like a flower opening in reverse, petal by petal, into darkness. The moon rose behind a veil of cloud, soft and round, giving the wet world a milky glow. The lighthouse beam continued its circle, moving over the garden wall, over the cliff, over the quiet sea. Each time it passed, droplets on the herbs flashed briefly, then returned to shadow. The cat curled beside the traveler on the bench, warm and companionable. In time, the traveler leaned back against the wall and closed their eyes. With the eyes closed, the lighthouse could still be felt. The turning light pressed gently through the lids and faded, returned and faded, like breathing that belonged to the tower itself. The hum of the lamp mingled with crickets and distant waves, the scents of lavender, rain, and salt braided together in the cool air. Sleep did not come, not quite, but something near sleep did. The traveler drifted in that soft country where thoughts lose their sharp outlines. Images rose and passed. Lemon leaves shining after rain, a broom sweeping water from stone, a brass box full of folded worries, a chain of lighthouses touching one another across the rim of the sea. None of the images asked to be held. They floated, and the traveler floated with them. The sea had smoothed after the rain. Moonlight lay on the water in a wide path that seemed to lead from the cliff into the sky. The traveler stood and went to the garden wall. For a moment, every drop of rain that had fallen that day seemed to be returning to the sea. Every stream from the steps, every bead from the lemon leaves, every silver thread from roofs and vines. Nothing was wasted. Everything returned. This thought brought a deep restfulness. The traveler understood, without needing many words, that not every burden must be solved before it can soften. Some burdens soften by being set down for a while. Some soften by being listened to. Some soften the way stone steps do, by receiving rain season after season, until what was once sharp becomes gentle beneath the feet. When at last the traveler rose to leave, the cat stretched and stepped down from the bench. Together they crossed the garden, passed through the small door, and returned to the courtyard. The traveler looked back at the tower, grateful for its quiet company, grateful for the rain, for the old man, for the unknown hand that had written the note in the blue bowl. The descent began gently. The path that had been damp and shadowed before was now lit by moonlight. The rosemary brushed the coat, just as the old man had said, and each touch released a clean green fragrance. Below, Amalfi slept. Windows that had glowed with supper were dark now, except for a few small lamps left burning above doorways. The square was empty. The harbor lay still beneath the moon, boats tucked close together like resting birds. The cat walked with the traveler all the way to the inn. At the door it sat on the wet stone and looked up with sea-glass eyes. The traveler bowed slightly as one might thank a guide in a dream. The cat blinked, turned, and slipped back into the lane, becoming first a shadow, then a smaller shadow, then part of the night. Inside the inn was quiet. A lamp burned low near the desk. The room upstairs smelled faintly of clean linen and rain-cooled air. The traveler opened the window just a little, enough to let in the sound of the sea. Far above the roofs, the lighthouse continued its slow turning. The beam crossed the ceiling in the imagination more than in fact, a soft sweep of gold that seemed to pass through dreams before they had even begun. The traveler placed the satchel on a chair, folded the coat, and set the note beside the bed. Shoes were left by the door. The book remained unopened because the evening itself had been enough of a book, written in wet stone, lavender, moon water, and light. The traveler lay down beneath a white coverlet while the village breathed around the room. There was nothing left to do. The rain had passed, the roads were washed, the harbor was calm. The lighthouse kept watch without effort, turning and turning, offering its quiet assurance to the coast, to the boats, to the sleeping terraces, to all who had climbed toward it, carrying something heavy and returned with gentler hands. And now the story grows softer. The traveler sleeps. The cat finds a warm doorstep. The old man's terrace dries under moonlight. The lemon leaves hold their last beads of rain, then let them fall. Far above the village, the lighthouse continues, steady and kind. Its light moves over the sea, then away, then back again. No hurry, no demand. Only the calm returning of brightness. Let the breath follow that rhythm now. In and out, near and far, light and shadow. The body can rest, the mind can loosen. Whatever has been carried may be placed, for now, in a quiet brass box beneath a turning lamp. The night is gentle. The shore is safe. The rain has left everything clean. Good night, dear traveler. Sleep well